Good morning, everyone. Hope all is well. Hope everyone's doing all right. Like a few trying to connect. We should be good though. So today we're looking starting. We're gonna do chapter 8. Look at hypothesis testing. Let's see. Any questions on anything before we get rolling? Everybody good? All right. So what's the title? I'm gonna go to another sheet so you don't necessarily have to copy this, but just a note for myself. All right, so this is 8.1 for us. We're just looking at, as a matter of fact, I'll probably just do 8.1, 8.2 together. Let me look at it. Yep. So I'm gonna do chapter 8. Just gonna talk about the background of hypothesis testing. So we're looking at all chapter 8, and then I'm gonna send you the steps in a file today, and then we will do some problems on next class. Probably just walk through some of the problems in the homework and hypothesis testing, and then we'll be, that'll be it. So, like I said, you wouldn't call it 10.1. You guys would call it 8.1 or just chapter 8. We're just going to talk about the background and hypothesis testing.
Excuse me, I have just one question regarding the final. I haven't read the attachment yet. Are we going to have a review before the day of the test or not? As the
Well, after next class, we're going to do, like I said, the background and hypothesis testing today, next class. And if you have any questions today, you can ask them about anything. Then on Monday, not Monday, it's Tuesday class. So on Tuesday, we'll do a few problems, with hypothesis testing. And then from there, you'll have 2 review days. Yep, you'll have the 29th and then the 3rd to ask whatever question you want to ask. The test review will be up. You can look at that and see what questions you want to ask out of that. And then, so you'll have 2 review days in between the actual test.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. All right, let me pull up this file. All right, so hypothesis is a statement. Oh, somebody said something in the chat. Somebody said it's on chapter 8, chapter 7. You guys can be writing that while I look at something real quick. Yeah, looking at this way that this course is set up, I'm gonna have to pull from each one of the previous sections. But like I said, just like I did with the test reviews, I'll give you a final review, final exam review, in which very similar to the actual final itself. You guys will be able to know what's going to be on the final and be able to ask whatever questions you want to ask, about it, prior to. So you still should be set up, in a decent way. Because also, hold on, did I put that on the final exam thing? I should have. Hold on one second. Where it go? Where it go? I didn't put that on details, but you can, actually make yourself a note sheet. So and as a matter of fact, if you're going to use your notes, I would, suggest that you take a look at the final exam review, and then make sure you streamline your notes so that you're not flipping through, you know, or back and forth, and you take advantage of your time. So yeah, yeah, you will have a review that will be posted that you'll be able to practice on. And like I said, look at the problems and see what questions you have and ask me, you know. All right. So hypothesis is a statement regarding the characteristic of one or more populations. Um, see, then they will choose two hypotheses. Nah, that's good enough. Hypothesis testing is a procedure based on a sample evidence and probability used to test statements regarding the characteristic of one or more populations. Don't know yet. I haven't made it up yet. But whatever it is not going to, because you guys will have 2 hours to take it. This 2 hour class time, 9 to 11. And I'm not going to make it so that it takes up the whole 2 hours. Not, but you do have the 2 hours to, knock it out. It will at least be 25 questions. Because that will make your questions 4 points apiece. I try to make sure that I give you enough questions so that if you miss one, I don't want to do 10 questions. And then you miss one, it's a 90, you miss two, it's an 80, you miss three, it's a 70. You know what I mean? So I try to give you enough questions to buffer the possibility of missing questions and still having a decent grade. So I know it will at least be 25. Yeah. All right. So steps, and I believe your book gives 4 steps. Let's see how you.
Can you scroll up a little bit, please?
Say it again.
Can you scroll up just to see the hypothesis?
Yep, there you go. Let's see, hypothesize statement, prepare, compute to compare, analyze. Same statements, but they break it up into 4 instead of 3. But it's all good. It's good enough. Just giving you a background on it. So steps in hypothesis testing. Now these are your steps if you had to start from scratch. Your problems will give you certain steps already in place. You'll see when we get there, but you'll make a statement regarding the nature of the population. Then from there, collect evidence, which is sample data, to test the statement. And then you'll analyze the data to assess the plausibility of the statement. I think that's it for that first page. Let me know. Can I scroll up? course, if I scroll up too high, just let me know, just like one of your classmates did already. It's not a problem. All right, anybody still copying the steps?
Yes.
All right, not a problem. Let me know when you finish. No big deal, just let me know. No rush.
Mr. Tucker, you said you were going to be posting these steps though, correct?
Oh, no, well, yeah, now this is just background right here, but the actual steps, and I'll show it to you before we leave. I have like a picture that actually has like the legitimate steps that you're going to take in order to be able to execute hypothesis testing. This is just your steps in general. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, matter of fact.
Okay.
Oh, didn't mean to do that. But anyway, that's what I'm talking about right there that I'm going to send you guys. All right, let me go back to the notes. Oh no.
And then what are the steps that are there then?
It's just in general. The background as to your hypothesis testing, these steps right here, if I can get back to it. All right, hold on. There we go. So these are just your steps in general. Let's say if you were starting from scratch, the first thing you would do is make a statement regarding the nature of the population. They're going to give you a problem, so you don't have to make that statement. Right now, I'm just giving you background on hypothesis testing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So you're going to have some stuff already in place before you actually. So this stuff right here is just background work. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And I'm done with you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So when you do your hypothesis testing, you're going to have two statements, I guess you would say. Yep, two statements. The first is, excuse me. First one is your null hypothesis. It's denoted by either you can call it HO or H naught. All right. It's the statement to be tested. It's a statement of no change. I left off the E right there. Should be E right there. Statement of no change, no effect, or no difference, and is assumed to be true until evidence indicate otherwise. Now, your book doesn't, for your alternative hypothesis, your book use HA instead of H1. Certain books use H1, other books use HA. So that's the statement we're trying to find evidence to support. So it's the alternative. So there's a statement that's already in place about your population. That's your null hypothesis. Once again, it's assumed to be true until evidence indicates otherwise. But then you have your alternative hypothesis, which is going to be HA for you guys. That's the statement that we are trying to find evidence to support. Your book also calls this so your book also used the term conservative status quo or business as usual statement. Actually, I don't know if my math app going to get that specific, with details, but you just never know. So just throwing that out there. All right. Anybody still copying? All right. Okay. So here we have our 3 tests. Our 2-tailed test. Then we have a left-tailed test. Then we have a right-tailed test. Both left-tailed and right-tailed are 1-tailed tests. And that comes from, this diagram right here. 2 tails over here that's being shaded as far as representing the areas that's going to help us to determine, the legitimacy of our statements. Then we have 1 tail over here and 1 tail over here. So what I want you to notice is that all of these are set up the same way. And don't forget, this is HA for us, not H1. So notice HO, HA, all, that's the same. You're going to have a parameter, whether it's P or whatever the case may be. Once, that's going to be the same for both of your statements. Then you're going to have a number. That's going to be the same for both of your statements. And notice equal is always for your null hypothesis. So when you look at this, all of this is set up the same for each one of your tests. So is this piece right here, this symbol right here, that's going to be different depending on what test you have. All right. And so it goes back to how we were doing our z-scores. It's going to be keywords that's going to let us know which symbol to use. So we'll see keywords like different. If all we're talking about is if this new statement is different than what it was before, then if no matter whether it's left or right or less than or greater than, then different would mean that, not equal to. If we're talking about less than, colder, hotter, shorter, something of that nature, then the less than symbol would be used. Or if the phrase is greater than, more than, hotter, taller, above, then the greater than symbol would be used. So your keywords or key phrases will dictate what symbol we will use. And then, of course, what symbol we use will let us know what test we are dealing with. And we see that in the next example when we look at setting these up. All right, anybody still copying? All right, so here we want to determine the null and alternative hypothesis, and then state whether the test is 2-tailed, left-tailed, or right-tailed. All right, let me erase some of this stuff. All right, so the first one, the medical pharmaceutical company has just developed a new antibiotic for children. 2% of the children taking competing antibiotics experience headaches as a side effect. A researcher for the Food and Drug Administration wishes to know if the percentage of children taking the new antibiotic who experience headaches as a side effect is more than 2%. So I'll give you guys a chance to write that, and then we'll see how we would set it up. All right, so look at how we got this set up. This is first part, we write HO and HA. Now we're looking at percent or proportion, so I use P for my parameter. This is my null hypothesis, so that first statement is always going to be equal, and the population parameter is 2%, so you're right, that is 0.02. All right, so don't forget that's always the case. Your null hypothesis always has an equal sign there. All right, so this P and then this 0.02 is going to be the same for your alternative hypothesis, but then we want to know more than. Is a side effect more than 2%? So that's why it's a greater than symbol there. All right. And because it's a greater than symbol, that means it's going to be right tail. All right, any questions on that setup? All right, everybody done? Ready to go to the next one? All right. Next one, the blue book price of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette is $86,012. Grant wonders if the mean price of a used 3-year-old Chevy Corvette in Miami is different from $86,012. All right, so once again, start off with HO and HA. Then this time we're looking at the mean, so I use my mean symbol. This is going to be equal, and we're looking at 86,012 as our value. And then in this case, we want to know is it going to be different. So that's why we're using the not equal to. So it could be larger, could be smaller, but we want to know is the mean different than 86,012. And because it's different, that means we are looking at a two-tailed test. All right, any questions on B? All right, last one, the standard deviation of contestants. I say contestants of content of the contents in a 64-ounce bottle of detergent using an old filling machine is 0.23 ounces. The manufacturer wants to know if the new filling machine has less variability. All right. So once again, HOHA. This time I'm using standard deviation symbol because we have the standard deviation of the contestants. Once again, equal sign for my null hypothesis. And we're looking at the number of 0.23 ounces. And we want to know this machine has less variability. So that's why I'm using our less than symbol. And less than means we have a left tail test. Any questions? Any questions? All right, can I scroll up? All right. So let's type a page like this before we finish it off. So we have 4 different outcomes possible. Number 1, you can reject the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true. So right, remember we only have 2. It's either the null hypothesis or the alternative hypothesis. So you reject the null hypothesis when we found out or have enough evidence that says the alternative hypothesis is true. So that's the correct conclusion. You do not reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true, right? That's correct. The next 2 are possible errors. So you reject the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. So of course you don't want to do that, but it is a possible error that could occur. We're going to talk about different ways we can try to prevent that error. Because what we're doing is that you have enough, what you're going to do is build up enough evidence to be able to make a conclusion when you're dealing with these hypothesis testing. And then that 4th one is do not reject the null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true. That's a type 2 error. All right, let's scroll up a little. So last statement on the sheet, level of significance is denoted by Greek letter alpha, and it's the probability of making a type 1 error. So we'll talk about the effects of that in a second. All right. Anybody still copying? All right. All right, so let's finish talking about these type 1 and type 2 errors. So I already wrote down that statement from the last one, but next we're looking at beta is the probability of making a type 2 error. Almost like our capital B, but it has an extended stem on the left, but it's Greek letter beta. All right. Once again, it's just background on the relationship between the two. The probability of making a type 1 error is chosen by the researcher before the sample data are collected. So once again, we're talking about, if you were doing this from scratch, what would be the process and procedure? You guys are going to get your significance level given to you in your problems first initially. But as far as, the statistics process, if you're doing from scratch, you would choose what your significance level would be. And so what would be the reason for choosing it or how you would choose it? The choice of the level of significance, alpha, depends on the consequences of making a type 1 error. So depending on what type of situation, scenario you have going on, how strict you want to be on making a type 1 error would be the reasoning on why you choose what level of significance. And so we'll see what we mean by consequences in a second. Just give you guys a chance to write though. All right, so if the consequences are severe, alpha should be small. So the smallest one of the common significance level is 0.01. So we're talking about using a 0.001 significance level. So then if the consequences are not severe, a higher alpha can be chosen. So we're looking at 0.05 or 0.10. All right, next statement, the level of significance is not always set at 0.01 because reducing alpha increases the probability of beta. So that's where we're talking about consequences. If you increase one, the other one decreases and vice versa. They have an inverse relationship. All right. So as one goes up, the other one goes down. Any questions on anything so far? All right, so we're good. Okay, so at 9:47. All right, so what I'm going to do, next class, we're going to walk through the hypothesis testing and the steps. Here, whoa, my notes. Okay, so here it lays it out, gives us step 1, step 2, 3, and then depending on whether we're doing a classical approach versus a p-value approach, we'll talk about all that. I'm going to send you, like I said, a copy of this. And I'm going to pull some problems from the actual homework assignment and just, let's do a few of them, make sure we're good to go, and go from there. See how they have. We talked about that in this class, your initial conditions and everything. If not, we'll talk about it in next class anyway. So questions on anything? Looking at my math lab, a few of us, we need to go ahead and get on this thing. Only saw a few people that are current as far as your tests are concerned. So you guys, we got to make sure we go ahead and get up there because we only have a couple weeks left, and then that'll be it. So that's why there's no, try not to throw too much at you because I know a lot of people still got some catch up work to get in there on. So I'm gonna go ahead and post some things in a few minutes as soon as I get out of here. But does anybody have any questions before we close? Anybody? So next class, you have this weekend. If you come across anything over the weekend that you have questions on, feel free to ask them. Because next class, all we're going to do is do some problems executing the hypothesis testing, and and that's it. So you'll still have time and opportunity to ask questions next class as well. But next class will be the last class that we will have new material being presented to you. So then you have 2 more classes after that in which you'll be able to ask whatever questions you want to ask. So the reason why I'm just re-emphasizing that means if, I post a test, review and everything like that before the weekend is out. If you look at this stuff, well, let's say you come to class next class and nobody has any questions. Well, I don't have any new material. So if you don't have any questions and I don't have any new material, if you haven't even at least looked at a test review and say, okay, at least can you walk me through this problem? I don't have anything else to do. So then they're just like, all right, well, see you next class. So really to be on you guys after next class, those 2 classes that follow, for you to bring, questions to the table. If you don't have any questions, that's fine with me, but I will be here for you guys if you need. Anything before we close? I see somebody say something in the chat. Now your test, someone asked in the chat what would happen if you scored if you do test 2, you didn't score 75 on it. So it's not a pass or fail thing, it's an average. So, if you let's say you got 100 on the first test 2, let's say you got a 50. Well, I average them together and whatever your grade is from that'll be your grade. So you don't necessarily have to get a certain score. Now, our developmental classes are like that. Like when you talk about MD 60 and stuff like that, those classes are set up in such a way that you have to get 75 on each test or you don't pass the course. That's not how this works. This is, I take, all of your tests, average them together, and then that'll be your final test grade. So if you only took it once, then you still have the opportunity to take it again to bring your grade up. Remember, you get 2 chances to get the best grade possible on your test. So you still have the opportunity to bring that grade up. Well, shoot, if you email me, if you took it twice and you email me and said, Mr. Tuck, can I please get another shot? I mean, I'll give you another shot. It's not a big a deal to me. So you can still bring that grade up. But if you're just done with that content, you're like, man, I'm not worried about it. Then you can bring it up by taking another test and doing better on another test. So I will be averaging those grades together to get your final test grade. Hopefully that answers your question. Make sure I answer your question if that's not exactly what you were asking. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
And you said you give extra 5 credit if you do any of the test review, if you finish.
Yes. If you scored 85 or better on your test review, then I'll add 5 points to your test. Yep.
Just for that test, right? Let's
Yes.
say for, okay.
Well, the way it goes is that I'm adding all your tests together and then dividing by the number of tests we have. So that it'll still go into your pool of points. So that 5 points affect all your tests. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right. Anything else? Anybody else? Everybody good? Everybody straight? And once again, if you think of another question, you can either email me or save for next class. So we still have time for any questions, whether it be class questions on how the classes ran or just math questions. So you guys have time to answer questions. All right. So if you guys are good, I'm good. I will see you on next class. Have a great weekend. Be safe, and see you Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.